한번 꺼지면 I don't know how to get it back. I don't know how to turn it back on from my computer. So I'm on my phone now. Okay, so the angle is a little bit different. 알겠습니다. Alright. Okay, 다시 한번 시작을 해볼게요. It's called Chapter 27, Vanity and Vexation of Spirit. Marilla, walking home one late April evening from an aid meeting, realized that the winter was over and gone with the thrill of delight that spring never fails to bring to the oldest and saddest, as well as to the youngest and merriest. Marilla was not given to subjective analysis of her thoughts and feelings. She probably imagined that she was thinking about the aides and their missionary box and the new carpet for the vestry room, but under these reflections was a harmonious consciousness of red fields, smoking into pale purply mists in the declining sun, of long, sharp-pointed fir shadows falling over the meadow beyond the brook, of still, crimson-budded maples around a mirror-like wood pool, of awakening in the world and a stir of hidden pulses under the gray sod. The spring was abroad in the land, and Marilla's sober, middle-aged step was lighter and swifter because of its deep, primal gladness. 네, 아까 말하긴 했었는데 우리 every chapter, what does every chapter, the beginning of each chapter have in common? 네, 항상 그 풍경에 대해서 말을 하죠. 그리고 네, this was Marilla가 되게 spring이 와서 좋다는 걸 consciously aware 하진 않았지만 그래도 이게 subconsciously 와서 좋았다는 거예요. 봄이 와서. Her eyes dwelt affectionately on Green Gables, peering through its network of trees and reflecting the sunlight back from its windows in several little coruscations of glory. 그리고 말씀을 해주세요. 잘 들리는지, 그리고 잘 보이는지. Marilla, as she picked her steps along the damp lane, thought that it was really a satisfaction to know that she was going home to a briskly snapping wood fire and a table nicely spread for tea instead of to the cold comfort of old aid meeting evenings before Anne had come to Green Gables. 네, 집에 가서 이게 불이 피워져 있고 저녁 먹을 준비가 딱 이렇게 준비되어 있는 걸 생각하니까 너무 기뻤어요. Consequently, when Marilla entered her kitchen and found the fire black out, with no sign of Anne anywhere, she felt justly disappointed and irritated. She had told Anne to be sure and have tea ready at 5 o'clock, but now she must hurry to take off her second best dress and prepare the meal herself against Matthew's return from plowing. 5시까지 준비해놓으라 그랬었는데 준비를 안 해서 자기가 이제 좋은 옷을 벗고 준비를 해야 돼요. I'll settle Miss Anne when she comes home, said Marilla grimly as she shaved up kindlings with a carving knife and more vim than was strictly necessary. Matthew had come in and was waiting patiently for his tea in his corner. She's gadding off somewhere with Diana, writing stories or practicing dialogues or some such tomfoolery, and never thinking once about the time or her duties. She's just got to be pulled up short and sudden on this sort of thing. I don't care if Mrs. Allen does say she's the brightest and sweetest child she ever knew. 다이아나랑 이야기 쓰거나 아니면 연기 연습을 하거나 이런 쓸데없는 짓이나 하고 있을 거야. Mrs. Allen이 자기가 본 아이들 중에 가장 똑똑하고 착한 아이라고 해도 소용이 없어. She may be bright and sweet enough, but her head is full of nonsense, and there's never any knowing what shape it'll break out in next. Just as soon as she grows out of one freak, she takes up with another. But there, here I am saying the very thing I was so riled with Mrs. Lynde for saying at the aid today. Mrs. Rachel가 한 말 때문에 내가 너무 화났는데 그 똑같은 말을 내가 지금 하고 있네. I was real glad when Mrs. Allen spoke up for Anne, for if she hadn't, I know I'd have said something too sharp to Rachel before everybody. Anne's got plenty of faults, goodness knows, and far be it from me to deny it. But I'm bringing her up, and not Rachel Lynde, who'd pick faults in the angel Gabriel himself if he lived in Avonlea. Just the same, Anne has no business to leave the house like this when I told her she was to stay home this afternoon and look after things. I must say, with all her faults, I never found her disobedient or untrustworthy before, and I'm real sorry to find her so now. Annie, 아무리 잘못이 많더라 그래도 안 좋은 점이 많다 해도 불순종적이고 신뢰할 수 없는 아이는 아니었는데 이제 그렇다는 거를 내가 깨달았으니 엄청 유감스럽네. Well now, I don't know, said Matthew, who being patient and wise and above all hungry, had deemed it best to let Marilla talk her wrath out unhindered, having learned by experience that she got through with whatever work was on hand much quicker, if not delayed by untimely argument. Wrath out unhindered. 화가 난 거를 방해 안 하면 더 빨리 해야 될 일을 하니까 그냥 조용히 있다는 거죠. Perhaps you're judging her too hasty, Marilla. Don't call her untrustworthy until you're sure she has disobeyed you. Maybe it can all be explained. Anne's a great hand at explaining. She's not here when I told her to stay, retorted Marilla. I reckon she'll find it hard to explain that to my satisfaction. Of course I knew you'd take her part, Matthew. But I'm bringing her up, not you. 내가 걔 편 들을 줄 알았어. 하지만 내가 키우는 거야. 내가 키우는 거야. Not you. It was dark when supper was ready, and still no sign of Anne coming hurriedly over the log bridge or up Lover's Lane, breathless and repentant with a sense of neglected duties. Marilla washed and put away the dishes grimly. Then, wanting a candle to light her down cellar, she went up to the east gable for the one that generally stood on Anne's table. Lighting it, she turned around to see Anne herself lying on the bed, face downward among the pillows. Mercy on us, said astonished Marilla. Have you been asleep, Anne? 자고 있었니? No, was the muffled reply. Muffled는 이렇게 이런 소리예요. Okay. 이불 속에 있어서. Are you sick then? Demanded Marilla anxiously, going over to the bed. Anne cowered deeper into her pillows as if desirous of hiding herself forever from mortal eyes. Cowered. 더 숨고 몸을 숙이고 웅크렸다는 거죠. No, but please, Marilla, go away and don't look at me. I'm in the depths of despair, and I don't care who gets head in class or writes the best composition or sings in the Sunday school choir anymore. Little things like that are of no importance now, because I don't suppose I'll ever be able to go anywhere again. My career is closed. Please, Marilla, go away and don't look at me. 나는 절망에 빠져 있어서 이제는 누가 학교에서 제일 잘하거나 누가 제일 글을 잘 쓰는지 이런 거나 상관 안 해요. 왜냐면 이제 나의 커리어가 이제 끝났기 때문에 이제 더 이상 아무데도 못 가기 때문에. Did anyone ever hear the like? The mystified Marilla wanted to know. Anne Shirley, whatever is the matter with you? What have you done? Get right up this minute and tell me. This minute, I say. There now, what is it? Anne had slid to the floor in despairing obedience. Look at my hair, Marilla, she whispered. Accordingly, Marilla lifted her candle and looked scrutinizingly at Anne's hair flowing in heavy masses down her back. 네, 숱이 많아요. It certainly had a very strange appearance. Anne Shirley, what have you done to your hair? Why, it's green. Green it might be called if it were any earthly color. A queer, dull, bronzy green with streaks here and there of the original red to heighten the ghastly effect. Never in all her life had Marilla seen anything so grotesque as Anne's hair at that moment. Grotesque. 그렇게 징그럽고 괴물스러운 걸 처음 봤대요. Yes, it's green, moaned Anne. I thought nothing could be as bad as red hair. 빨강머리처럼 나쁜 거는 없다고 생각을 했는데 but now I know it's 10 times worse to have green hair. Oh, Marilla, you little know how utterly wretched I am. I little know how you got into this fix, but I mean to find out, said Marilla. Come right down to the kitchen. It's too cold up here, and tell me just what you've done. I've been expecting something queer for some time. You haven't got into any scrape for over 2 months, and I was sure another one was due. Now then, what did you do to your hair? I dyed it. Dyed it? Dyed your hair? Anne Shirley, didn't you know it was a wicked thing to do? 머리를 그 시대에는 염색하는 게 악한 거라고, 너무 허영심을 키우는 거라고 생각했었어요. Yes, I knew it was a little wicked, admitted Anne, but I thought it was worthwhile to be a little wicked to get rid of red hair. I counted the cost, Marilla. Besides, I meant to be extra good in other ways to make up for it. Well, said Marilla sarcastically, if I'd decided it was worthwhile to dye my hair, I'd have dyed it a decent color at least. I wouldn't have dyed it green. But I didn't mean to dye it green, Marilla protested Anne dejectedly. If I was wicked, I meant to be wicked to some purpose. 내가 악했더라면 내가 무슨 목적을 가지고 악했겠죠. He said it would turn my hair a beautiful raven black. He positively assured me that it would. But how could I doubt his word, Marilla? I know what it feels like to have your word doubted. 말을 의심하는 거가 어떤 느낌인지 알기 때문에 나는 의심하지도 않았어요. And Mrs. Allen says we should never suspect anyone of not telling us the truth unless we have proof that they're not. I have proof now. Green hair is proof enough for anybody. But I hadn't then, and I believed every word he said implicitly. 증거가 있지 않으면, Mrs. Allen이 그렇게 얘기를 해줬대요. 증거가 있지 않은 이상 사람이 진실을 거짓말한다고 생각을 의심하면 안 된다고. 그래서 그 당시에는 증거가 없었기 때문에 완전히 믿었다고. Who said? Who are you talking about? The peddler that was here this afternoon. I bought the dye from him. Anne Shirley, how often have I told you never to let one of those Italians in the house? I don't believe in encouraging them to come around at all. Oh, I didn't let him in the house. I remembered what you told me, and I went out, carefully shut the door, and looked at his things on the step. Besides, he wasn't an Italian. He was a German Jew. He had a big box full of very interesting things, and he told me he was working hard to make enough money to bring his wife and children out from Germany. He spoke so feelingly about them that it touched my heart. I wanted to buy something from him to help him in such a worthy object. Then all at once I saw the bottle of hair dye. The peddler said it was warranted to dye any hair a beautiful raven black and wouldn't wash off. In a trice I saw myself with beautiful raven black hair, and the temptation was irresistible. 네, 순간 자기 자신이 검은 머리를 가진 거를 상상했대요. But the price of the bottle was 75 cents, and I had only 50 cents left out of my chicken money. I think the peddler had a very kind heart, for he said that seeing it was me, he'd sell it for 50 cents, and that was just giving it away. So I bought it, and as soon as he had gone, I came up here and applied it with an old hairbrush as the directions said. I used up the whole bottle, and oh, Marilla, when I saw the dreadful color it turned my hair, I repented of being wicked. 네, 반성을 했다는 거죠. 색깔을 보는 순간. I can tell you. 네, of being wicked, I can tell you. I've been repenting ever since. Well, I hope you'll repent to good purpose, said Marilla severely, and that you've got your eyes open to where your vanity has led you, Anne. Goodness knows what's to be done. I suppose the first thing is to give your hair a good washing and see if that will do any good. 너의 허영심이 어디로 너를 인도했는지 이제 알겠지? Accordingly, Anne washed her hair, scrubbing it vigorously with soap and water, but for all the difference it made, she might as well have been scouring its original red. The peddler had certainly spoken the truth when he declared that the dye wouldn't wash off. However, his veracity might be impeached in other respects. 네, 그의 솔직함이 다른 면에선 탄핵될 수 있지 몰라도 그 염색이 물이 빠지지 않을 거라는 말은 정말 사실이었습니다. Oh, Marilla, what shall I do? Questioned Anne in tears. I can never live this down. People have pretty well forgotten my other mistakes, the liniment cake and setting Diana drunk and flying into a temper with Mrs. Lynde. But they'll never forget this. They will think I am not respectable. Oh, Marilla, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. That is poetry, but it is true. And oh, how Josie Pye will laugh. Marilla, I cannot face Josie Pye. I am the unhappiest girl in Prince Edward Island. Anne's unhappiness continued for a week. 일주일 동안 불행했다는 거예요. During that time, she went nowhere and shampooed her hair every day. Diana alone of outsiders knew the fatal secret, but she promised solemnly never to tell, and it may be stated here and now that she kept her word. 아무한테도 얘기 안 하기로 했는데 여기서 말을 하겠습니다. 그녀는 약속을 지켰습니다. At the end of the week, Marilla said decidedly, "It's no use, Anne. That is fast dye if ever there was any. Fast dye. Hold fast 하는 것처럼 절대로 안 없어진다는 거예요. Your hair must be cut off. There's no other way. You can't go out with it looking like that." Anne's lips quivered. 입술이 떨었어요. But she realized the bitter truth of Marilla's remarks. With a dismal sigh, she went for the scissors. 네, 자르긴 싫었지만 Marilla의 말에 쓴 진실을 깨달았어요. Please cut it off at once, Marilla, and have it over. Oh, I feel that my heart is broken. This is such an unromantic affliction. The girls in books lose their hair in fevers or sell it to get money for some good deed, and I'm sure I wouldn't mind losing my hair in some such fashion half so much. 다른 애들은 책에 나오는 여자애들은 뭐 열이 나서 머리카락이 빠진다든지 아니면 판다든지 좋은 걸 위해 판다든지 하는데 But there is nothing comforting in having your hair cut off because you've dyed it a dreadful color, is there? I'm going to weep all the time you're cutting it off if it won't interfere. 방해가 안 되면 내가 자르는 동안 흐느끼며 울겠습니다. It seems such a tragic thing. Anne wept then, but later on, when she went upstairs and looked in the glass, she was calm with despair. Marilla had done her work thoroughly, and it had been necessary to shingle the hair as closely as possible. The result was not becoming, 어울리지 않았다는 거죠. 이쁘지 않았어요. To state the case as mildly as may be. 네, 최대한 좋게 말을 하자면, 네, 어울리지 않았다는 거죠. Anne promptly turned her glass to the wall. I'll never look at myself again until my hair grows, she exclaimed passionately. Then she suddenly righted the glass. Yes, I will too. I'll do penance for being wicked that way. 내가 거울을 계속 쳐다볼 거예요. 속죄하기 위해서. I'll look at myself every time I come to my room and see how ugly I am. And I won't try to imagine it away either. 상상력으로 없애려고 하지도 않을 거예요. I never thought I was vain about my hair of all things, but now I know I was, in spite of its being red, because it was so long and thick and curly. I expect something will happen to my nose next. 내가 머리카락에 대해서 그렇게 자랑스러워하는 줄 몰랐는데 빨개가지고 빨간색이어서 하지만 너무 길고 숱도 많고 그래서 내가 정말 자랑스러웠다는 걸 이제 알겠습니다. 이제 내 코가 어떻게 되겠죠? 왜냐면 코에 대해서 자기가 너무 코가 예쁘다는 걸 너무 잘 아니까 그리고 자랑스러워하니까. Anne's clipped head, 잘린 머리, made a sensation in school on the following Monday, but to her relief, nobody guessed the real reason for it, not even Josie Pye, who, however, did not fail to inform Anne that she looked like a perfect scarecrow. I didn't say anything when Josie said that to me, Anne confided that evening to Marilla, who was lying on the sofa after one of her headaches, because I thought it was part of my punishment and I ought to bear it patiently. It's hard to be told you look like a scarecrow, and I wanted to say something back, but I didn't. I just swept her one scornful look and then forgave her. It makes you feel very virtuous when you forgive people, doesn't it? 엄청 도덕적인 느낌이에요. 누구를 용서한다는 거, 그쵸? I mean to devote all my energies to being good after this, and I shall never try to be beautiful again. Of course it's better to be good. I know it is, but it's sometimes so hard to believe a thing even when you know it. I do really want to be good, Marilla, like you and Mrs. Allen and Miss Stacy, and grow up to be a credit to you. Diana says when my hair begins to grow to tie a black velvet ribbon around my head with a bow at one side. She says she thinks it will be very becoming. I will call it a snood. That sounds so romantic. But am I talking too much, Marilla? Does it hurt your head? 저 지금 말을 너무 많이 하고 있나요? 머리 아프세요? 머리 아프게 하나요? My head is better now. It was terrible bad this afternoon, though. These headaches of mine are getting worse and worse. I'll have to see a doctor about them. As for your chatter, I don't know that I mind it. I've got so used to it. 네, mind는 정말 싫어한다는 거죠. 머리 아픈 게 점점 심해지고 있는데 너의 수다는 내가 이제 익숙해져서 그렇게 싫어하진 않아. Which was Marilla's way of saying that she liked to hear it. Marilla의 방식이었어요. Anne의 수다를 듣는 거가 좋다는 거를. 네, 수다가 좋다는 거를 그런 식으로 말을 하는 거죠. Alright, 오늘 첫 라방이 아까 한 게 잘 안 보여서 끊겨가지고 끊었는데 못 들어오신 분들 이걸 다시 보시고 도움이 되셨으면 좋겠습니다. Good night.